A South African mining company convinced the world that colorless rocks were worth dying for, and made billions doing it. In 1938, the diamond market was collapsing. Miners in South Africa had found so much rough diamond that the price had cratered. Stones that should have been expensive were flooding markets in New York, London, and Antwerp. The supply was real. The scarcity was a lie waiting to be invented. So what's the actual question here? How does a company take a commodity with zero inherent value, a rock that's chemically identical to pencil lead, and convince an entire civilization that it's precious? The answer reveals something darker about how markets work. De Beers, the company that controlled roughly 80% of the world's diamond supply by the 1940s, had a problem. They owned the mines, they owned the inventory, and they owned a collapsing market. Flooding the market further would destroy their own profits, so they did something brilliant. They stopped selling diamonds. Instead, they hired N.W Ayer, a Philadelphia advertising firm, and gave them a mandate. Make people believe that diamonds were rare, that they were essential, that a man's love was measured in carats. This wasn't marketing. This was the engineering of desire itself. The campaign that followed reshaped culture. Hollywood starlets were photographed wearing diamonds. Magazine spreads linked diamond rings to romance, to commitment, to the proof of a man's financial worth. A diamond became a symbol not of geology, but of devotion. And crucially, it became a symbol of rarity. But here's where the mechanism gets interesting. De Beers didn't just advertise diamonds, they advertised the myth of scarcity. Every campaign suggested that diamonds were becoming harder to find, that prices would rise, that you'd better buy now. The company controlled supply so completely that they could make this true simply by choosing what to release. When major diamond discoveries happened, in Australia, in Russia, anywhere, De Beers bought them. When they couldn't buy them, they flooded the market with their own stones to crash the price and make the new discovery worthless. They were playing chess while the world thought it was buying rocks. The phrase "a diamond is forever" entered the cultural bloodstream in 1948. It was De Beers' creation. It wasn't describing reality. It was engineering reality. The slogan wasn't about diamonds. It was about making people believe that diamonds would hold value, that they'd never lose their shine, that they were an investment. And it worked spectacularly. By the 1950s, diamond engagement rings had transformed from a niche luxury into an expected ritual. Young men were told by magazines, by culture, by the ambient pressure of society, that they had to buy a diamond. Not a nice watch, not land, a diamond, a specific kind of carbon. But what happened to the actual supply? De Beers kept it locked down. They built vaults, they stored diamonds, they controlled the flow so precisely that the market never flooded. The scarcity was real because they made it real by choosing not to sell what they'd mined. The mythology and the mechanism were the same thing. Here's what makes this fascinating from an incentive standpoint. Nobody in this story was stupid. De Beers executives knew diamonds weren't rare. Ayer's copywriters knew they were manufacturing desire. The magazines knew they were running paid content disguised as culture. Everyone understood the game. The question is, why did it work? It worked because humans aren't rational about value. We're social, we need signals. A diamond doesn't feed you, it doesn't shelter you. But it signals something: commitment, wealth, devotion. And once a critical mass of people believed in that signal, the belief became self-reinforcing. The value was real because enough people agreed it was. De Beers didn't discover that diamonds were valuable. They invented the idea that diamonds were valuable. And then they built a system, marketing, supply control, cultural messaging, that made that invented idea stick. For 70 years, it was airtight. The company controlled roughly 80 to 90% of the global diamond trade. Then in the 1990s and 2000s, the system began to crack. Lab-grown diamonds became viable. Conflict diamonds from African wars entered the market. The internet made information transparent. De Beers' monopoly weakened. The mythology started to show its seams. But here's the thing, even as the monopoly fractured, the belief remained. People still buy diamond rings, prices haven't collapsed. The mythology outlived the mechanism that created it. De Beers had done something almost unprecedented. They'd permanently rewired human desire. So what's the real lesson? Not that diamonds are worthless. Value is subjective. If people want them, they have value. The lesson is about how value gets created. It's not discovered in nature. It's engineered in boardrooms, amplified through culture, and then locked in place by collective belief. De Beers didn't find scarcity, they manufactured it, and they got rich doing it, obscenely rich. By understanding that people don't buy products, they buy stories, status, and the feeling of scarcity, De Beers turned geology into mythology and mythology into a multi-billion-dollar empire. That's not a bug in capitalism. That's the entire system working exactly as designed. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe for more deep dives into how fortunes are built on manufactured desire and market psychology. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.